The drive back from Yellowknife was supposed to take 11 hours. I did it in 9. The mining company had shut down our site 3 weeks early. Equipment malfunction, they said. Something with the ventilation system and the lower shaft that would take longer to fix than anyone wanted to admit. 18 months I'd been doing rotations up there. 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off. It was the kind of schedule that paid well and cost everything else. I pulled into the driveway of our house in Barrie just past 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. The flower boxes my daughter had planted in May were bone dry. Every stem collapsed over the edge like they'd given up. She'd been so proud of those petunias. Watered them every morning before school. I sat in the truck for a moment before going in. Something about the house felt off. Hard to explain. The blinds were all closed, which Tamara usually hated. She always said the place felt like a cave when the blinds were down. I figured maybe she was napping. Inside, everything was too neat. Kitchen spotless. Living room pillows arranged in a way nobody actually sits with. My daughter's shoes weren't by the door, which was strange because she left them there every single day no matter how many times Tamara asked her not to. Old habit from when her mother was alive. Her mother had always said you could tell everything about a day by the shoes left at the door. I went upstairs. My daughter's room was made up like a hotel. Her desk was clear except for a single library book sitting exactly in the center. Her sketchpad was gone. She'd been working on something for weeks, a series of drawings she wouldn't show me yet, said they weren't finished. The desk felt wrong without it. My phone buzzed. "Tamara, you're home early," she said, not a question. "Site shut down. Where's my daughter?" A pause. The kind that lasts just a beat too long. "She's at that program, the outdoor leadership thing. I told you about it in August. I didn't remember it." I remembered a lot of things from August. My daughter starting grade 7. The new medication her doctor had adjusted. The look on her face at the airport when she hugged me goodbye and held on a few seconds longer than usual. I didn't remember a program. "What program?" Dr. Arsenault's. "You know, the one Debbie mentioned at the barbecue. It's for kids who need a bit of structure, outdoor skills, discipline. They're up near Georgian Bay somewhere. She's been there 3 weeks. 3 weeks. She was struggling," Tamara said. "You know how she gets. She wasn't sleeping. She was skipping assignments. She was spending all her time on those drawings instead of..." "Give me the address." Her voice changed. "God, careful. You're going to embarrass her." These programs don't like parents showing up unannounced. It disrupts the whole group dynamic. Dr. Arsenault was very clear about that. "Address. Now." She gave it to me. I could hear in her voice that she was calculating something, figuring out angles, and I didn't have time to think about what that meant yet. I was already back in my truck. The address took me north of Barrie, past Midland, onto a series of township roads that narrowed progressively until the pavement ended and gravel took over. My GPS lost signal somewhere around a blueberry farm that looked like it hadn't been operational in years. I found the turnoff by the mailbox number on a post, no other signage. The property was maybe 40 acres. Old farmhouse at the end of a lane plus a large outbuilding that had been added sometime in the last decade. Metal siding, aluminum roof, too new for the rest of the property. A van was parked near the outbuilding. No other vehicle. No sound of kids. I tried the farmhouse first. Locked. Side door locked. I walked around toward the outbuilding and that's when I heard them. Not playing, not talking. Working the rhythmic sound of physical labor, tools on soil, movement that had a pattern to it that wasn't natural for children. The property backed onto what must have been an old market garden, maybe 2 acres of it, with rows of late-season root vegetable. Carrots, parsnips, some kind of turnip. There were children in those rows. I counted 11 before I stopped counting. They ranged from maybe 8 to 15. They wore rubber boots and work gloves despite the September sun still being warm enough to raise a sweat. They were harvesting into wooden crates, no one talking. An adult man in a high-visibility vest watching from the end of the row with his arms crossed. My daughter was near the middle of the field. I knew her by her hair, the way she moved. She'd always had her mother's way of moving, a certain careful deliberateness, like she was thinking through each step. Her shoulders were hunched in a way I'd never seen before, like she was trying to be small. I walked into that field. The man in the vest stepped forward. "Private property, sir. This is a registered program. You can't just..." "That's my daughter." He reached for his phone. I kept moving. My daughter heard my voice. She turned around. She looked at me for a second like she wasn't sure I was real. Her face was pale under the outdoor flush. She had a cut on her chin that had scabbed over without anyone cleaning it properly. Her gloves were the wrong size, too big, the kind of detail that meant someone had handed them out without checking. "Dad." She didn't run. That was the thing that stopped my heart. Any other time in her 12 years she would have run. Instead she walked toward me, carefully, like she'd learned that moving too fast had consequences. I went to her. When I put my hand on her shoulder, she flinched. Just slightly. Then she grabbed my arm with both hands and didn't let go. "I heard you weren't coming back," she said. Her voice was quiet, flat in a way I'd never heard from her. They said Tamara told them you signed the papers and you weren't going to be involved anymore, that I was their responsibility now, that you chose the job. Her voice didn't break when she said it. That was the worst part. She said it like something she'd already processed, already filed away. I said, I'm here, I've got you. Whatever they told you, it wasn't true. I know, she said, but I didn't know when you'd come. The man in the vest was talking into his phone now. Behind me I could hear boots on gravel from the direction of the farmhouse. The other kids had stopped working. They were watching us. One girl, maybe 10 years old, had taken off her gloves and was holding them against her chest like she was in church. A second man came across the field. Older, 60s, pressed chinos, a fleece vest with some kind of embroidered logo I couldn't read from a distance. He had the walk of someone who was accustomed to being listened to, Mr. Kowalski. His voice was smooth, practiced, carrying that particular warmth that people use when they want you to feel managed. I'm Dr. Farcino. I'm glad you came. I've been hoping we'd have a chance to speak. Your daughter is making real progress here. I think if you give me a few minutes to. My daughter was picking root vegetables in a field. We incorporate practical skills into the program. Research shows that physical outdoor work has measurable benefits for emotional regulation. Your daughter presented with significant. He paused. What? How many hours a day are they working in this field? This isn't a work program. This is structured outdoor therapy. There's an important distinction. I looked at the crates, stacked near the outbuilding, a dozen of them, full. I looked at the other children, their clothes, their faces. A boy, maybe 8, stood at the end of the nearest row with his hands at his sides looking at the ground. Show me where they sleep. That's not something I'm able to do without. This is a licensed facility. There are privacy considerations for the other participants. Show me where they sleep or I'm calling the OPP right now. He smiled in the way that means the opposite of warmth. Mr. Kowalski, your ex-wife has legal custody while you're on rotation. You gave up significant parental rights when you took that position in the Northwest Territories. Dr. Arsenault has authority here as the supervising clinician under the agreement she signed. If you remove your daughter from this program against that agreement, you could be looking at a custody complication that. My daughter's hand tightened on my arm. Dad, please don't argue. Just take me home, please. I looked at Dr. Arsenault, then at the 2 men now flanking him, then at the other children still watching. Then I picked up my daughter. She was 12 and too old for it, and I did it anyway, and I started walking toward my truck. They tried to stop me. I won't detail everything about those next 4 minutes because my daughter was there, and I don't want her to remember it worse than she already does. What I'll say is that 2 men tried to physically prevent me from leaving with my own child, and I left anyway. At some point in that 4 minutes, I used my shoulder in a way I hadn't used it since I played junior hockey, and my daughter had her face buried in my neck the whole time saying, "It's okay, Dad, it's okay," like she was the one comforting me. I got to the truck, got her in, locked the doors. My hands weren't entirely steady. I called 911 and stayed on the phone with the dispatcher, while Dr. Arsenault stood 20 feet away recording us on his phone and talking to someone else on his. The OPP arrived in 11 minutes, 2 cruisers. I'd kept my daughter talking the whole time. About nothing, about the drive, about what she wanted to eat, anything to keep her voice in my ears. The officer who came to my window was a woman, maybe 30, calm in the way of someone trained to read situations fast. She looked at my daughter's face, looked at the cut on her chin, looked at her hands. Then she looked at the field. She said, "Okay, I need you to stay here with your daughter." What happened in the next 3 hours I know partly from what I was told afterward. The officers found the living quarters, a converted storage room behind the farmhouse, 6 bunk beds for 11 children, 1 bathroom with a broken lock. They found a log that documented daily work hours, 6 a.m. to noon, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week. They found financial records that connected Dr. Arsenault's program, registered as a charity in Ontario, claiming therapeutic services, to a market garden operation that had contracts with 2 regional grocery wholesalers. The children were not paid. The parents had paid him. The fee was $4,000 a month per child. A significant number of families qualified for Ontario Works or the Canada Child Benefit and had stretched those payments to cover it because Dr. Arsenault's brochure was professional and his referrals came through a network of school counselors and family doctors who didn't know what they were recommending. My daughter sat with a blanket around her shoulders in the back of my truck and ate the granola bars I found in the glove compartment and told me some of what the weeks had been like. She told me in pieces, not continuously, a detail, then a silence, then another detail, the way memory releases things. She told me about being allowed to call home twice, and that the calls were supervised, and she'd been told before each call that if she said anything negative it would be logged as a setback and she'd lose outdoor time. Outdoor time meant free time. Everything was currency. Complaints cost you something. She told me that a younger boy had cried during the first week and had been moved to a separate room for 2 nights as a cooling-off period. She didn't know what was in that room. He didn't talk about it after. She told me that she'd stopped drawing after the first week because she'd been told that drawing was avoidant behavior, that it was how she escaped from reality instead of engaging with it. Her sketchpad had been taken and locked in an office. She'd been promised it back at the end of the program. That part I had to sit with for a moment. Drawing was the thing that had gotten her through the year after her mother died. Her grief counselor had called it essential. Her teacher had called it a gift. Dr. Arsenault had called it a problem to be corrected. A paramedic checked her over. Minor malnutrition, beginning stages. A vitamin D deficiency that wouldn't be surprising given how little sunlight she'd gotten in meaningful doses. Most of the outdoor time was overcast mornings and they wore long sleeves. A bruise on her left arm she said had come from a fall but wouldn't meet my eyes when she said it. She needs to see her family doctor within the week, the paramedic told me, and it wouldn't hurt to get a referral. I'm not leaving my dad, my daughter said to no one in particular. First time all afternoon I heard something like herself in her voice. Tamara arrived around 7. She looked genuinely shaken, pale, shoulders pulled in. Not at all the version of her I'd been preparing myself to confront. She'd driven from Barrie the moment the OPP had contacted her. She stood outside my truck and looked at our daughter through the glass and started crying. My daughter looked at her for a long time without saying anything, then she turned back to face forward. I didn't know, Tamara said when I came around the truck to speak to her. I mean, I knew it was structured. The brochure said intensive. I thought that meant hiking and journaling and whatever. Debbie's nephew did a program. She said it turned him around completely. She was struggling so much and you weren't here and I didn't know what else to do. You didn't come to visit. They said the first month was a no-contact period. That parent visits interrupted the bonding process with the peer group, and you accepted that. She looked at the ground. I was trying to do the right thing. I believed her that she hadn't known the specifics. I also knew that she hadn't asked enough questions. There's a space between malice and negligence, and Tamara lived in that space, and I didn't have the capacity in that moment to figure out exactly what it meant for everything between us. Tamara was not charged. The investigation determined that she'd been deceived by a program operating with falsified credentials. Dr. Arsenault had listed himself on the registration documents as a registered psychotherapist in Ontario. He was not. His credentials had been issued by an unaccredited institution in Florida that operated as an online mill. You paid, you got a certificate. His referral network had taken him at face value. He was charged with fraud over $5,000, uttering forged documents, child labor violations under the Ontario Employment Standards Act, and forcible confinement. 3 members of his staff were charged as well. The trial took 8 months. I attended every day I could, which meant restructuring my work contract significantly. I took a position with a local drilling company in Barrie. Less money, no more rotations, home every night. My daughter needed me present. The math wasn't complicated. Dr. Arsenault was convicted on all charges. 4 years federal plus restitution ordered to every family. His program's charitable registration was revoked. The grocery wholesalers who'd purchased produce from the operation issued statements saying they hadn't known the source. I'll leave it to whoever reads this to decide how much weight to give those statements. 9 families had enrolled children in the program. 11 children total, some siblings. The youngest was 7. The oldest was 15 and had been there for 5 months. My daughter went back to school in October, 3 weeks late. Her teacher held a spot for her and sent work home during the first week when she wasn't quite ready for the full day. Her grief counselor, the same one she'd been seeing since her mother died, started seeing her twice a week instead of once. She didn't draw for 6 weeks. The sketchpad had been returned by the police as part of evidence and then given back to us, and it sat on her desk and she didn't touch it. I didn't push. Her counselor said the same thing. Let her come back to it when she's ready. One Saturday morning I came downstairs and she was at the kitchen table with the pad open and a set of pencils I didn't recognize. New ones, not her old set. She was drawing our backyard, just the yard, the fence, the dead flower boxes, the bird feeder I kept meaning to fill. She didn't look up. I made coffee. We sat in the same room and didn't need to talk about it. Over the following months she drew a lot. Some of it was hard to look at. Images of rooms with no windows, figures in rows, a recurring image of hands in 2 large gloves. But she kept going. Her counselor said that was the right direction, that making the images meant she was processing them instead of carrying them sealed. By February, she was showing me things voluntarily. Look at this one, Dad. What do you think this one needs? I didn't always know what it needed. I said so. She liked that better than a compliment. In March, her art teacher entered 2 of her pieces in a regional youth competition without telling her. She won a commendation. The pieces were the hands in the gloves and a second image she called Coming Back. which showed a figure standing at the edge of a field with a bag on her back, facing away from the field, facing towards something light and unfinished. The judge's note said it demonstrated emotional maturity beyond the artist's years. My daughter read the notes twice and then said, "Huh," and put them in a folder. That was more like her. The custody agreement was revised through the courts the following spring. Tamara remained in my daughter's life. My daughter wanted that, and I wasn't going to take away something she wanted, especially not then. But the arrangement was restructured so that any significant decisions about education, health, or programs required both signatures. A family mediator suggested this. It was the right call. Tamara attended some of my daughter's counseling sessions when invited. I don't know everything that happened in those sessions. It's not mine to know. What I know is that my daughter, 3 months into the new arrangement, agreed to go to dinner with Tamara, just the two of them, and came home afterward and said it was okay. Not good. Okay, I took that as its own kind of progress. The family of the 7-year-old boy, the youngest one, kept in touch with us. His mother, a single parent working 2 jobs in Aurelia, had enrolled him because a school social worker had suggested the program as an alternative to a wait list that stretched 14 months for public services. She'd had no other options she could see. We got coffee a few times. She was trying to figure out if she had grounds to sue the school board for the referral. I don't know how that ended. I hope it went somewhere. The summer after the trial, my daughter asked me if we could go to Georgian Bay, just for a day. I thought she meant somewhere else, a beach, a park. She meant the property. I don't know what I expected. She stood at the fence at the road and looked at it for a while. The program was gone. The property had been seized, tied up in the fraud proceedings. The outbuilding was still there, but the market garden had been torn under by the fall. Just earth. Smaller than I remembered, she said. I thought it was huge. But it's actually not that big. I didn't say anything. She took a photo of it on her phone. I thought maybe she'd use it for something she was drawing. She never did, as far as I know. Maybe she just needed to see it small. On the drive back to Barrie, she slept for an hour in the passenger seat. When she woke up, she looked out the window for a while and then said, "I want to do something when I'm older. I don't know what yet. Something where I can tell people what to look for." She was 12, nearly 13. I didn't tell her she had time to figure it out, because she already knew that and it would have been condescending. I said, "Okay, we can think about that." That fall, she started volunteering at a community resource center in Barrie, answering phones 1 Saturday a month. It was a small thing. She came home and told me about the calls. Not details. She knew enough not to share details, just the fact of them, that people called, that someone picked up. There are things I carry from that September that I won't put here. Some of them belong to my daughter and not to me. Some of them are about the particular quality of that first night at home, after the hospital, after the statements, after everything. She was asleep in her own bed, and I sat in the hallway outside her room for an hour, because I couldn't bring myself to go further away than that. Some of them are about the 18 months before, the choices I'd made about money and distance and what I'd told myself they were for. I've given a lot of talks since then. Schools, community centers, a couple of parent evenings at churches. What I try to say every time is this: legitimate programs want you involved. They want you to visit, they want you to call, they want you to ask questions and check credentials and show up unannounced if you feel like it. The moment someone tells you that your involvement is a disruption, that contact with your child is harmful to their progress, that you need to trust the process and step back, that is the moment to step forward. Every time, without exception. My daughter is 14 now. She still draws. She has friends she chose herself, which sounds like nothing and is everything. She has a recurring argument with her math teacher that she describes to me in detail and with great satisfaction. She has opinions about music I don't understand, and I let her explain them to me at length because I love the sound of her having opinions. She asked me last winter if I felt guilty about the rotations, about being gone. I said yes. She thought about it. She said, "I think you were trying. I think you didn't know what you didn't know." I said that was generous of her. She said, "I'm not being generous. I'm being accurate. There's a difference." She gets that from her mother, the precision, the way of saying the thing that matters without performing the emotion around it. I'm still learning it, even now, but she's a patient teacher.